You're listening to Ask the Expert on Sprott Money News.
Well, greetings again from Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com. This is your Ask the Expert segment for January of 2017. I'm your host, Craig Hemke. And joining us this month is Keith Neumeyer. Keith is the president and CEO of First Majestic Silver and the chairman of First Mining Finance. And if you're not familiar with First Majestic Silver, they're actually the second largest silver producer in Mexico and one of the top 5 primary silver producing companies in the world. So it's a real pleasure to get a chance to visit with Keith and ask him some of your questions. So Keith, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Well, thanks, Greg. Good chatting with you again.
And again, these are questions that were submitted over the last couple of weeks by Sprott Money customers. And I've got a handful of them. We had a whole bunch come in, so I've tried to combine some, to try to get as many of these answers as we can in the time that we have. So let's just dive right in. The first one, we've got a new president coming in the U.S. on Friday, and he's talking about tariffs and border taxes and things like that. The first question deals with that, Keith. It says, how might tariffs on Mexican imports affect silver producers in Mexico and the price of silver in general?
I don't think it really would have much impact on very much. I look, Mexico's having some challenges right now, for sure. With energy prices so low, the revenues going into the government treasuries are lower than it is, or it has been historically. So they have gone after the mining sector. We know that. I think everyone listening to this knows that a tax was brought into place back in 2014. We're paying that tax. It's it's basically normal course. If you compare it to other countries around the world, Mexico is about in the middle, where it comes to taxation, of industry. So it's a relatively low cost industry relatively low cost country to be active in as a company. With the peso the way it is, labor is extremely cheap. The peso is around 23 to 1, which is, pretty good for us. As our revenues in U.S. dollars and our cost, 75% of our costs are in pesos. And the peso was about 12 to 1 just, 2 years ago. It's now 24 to 1 or 23 to 1. So it's made a huge difference for us. So, I'm not expecting much change in Mexico as a result of Trump coming in at all.
Okay, fair enough. Second question then, kind of also a global issue. Currently, we're seeing on a daily basis almost a 10% premium for the price of silver in Shanghai versus the New York-London price. Is there a way that First Majestic can sell their silver there?
I don't know of a way, quite frankly. We deal with, most of our production is in dory bars. So we sell in the spot market, and I make that choice when I like what's happening in the market. We had a nice spike in silver over the last week or so, and we as a company sold into that strength, and I'm always trying to get the best average selling price for our metal on a quarterly basis, as best as I can. And I take advantage of these types of spikes in the market. I'm very bullish on the metal. I think the silver price is going to go much, much higher. But we are a company. We need to sell our metal. And even though I hate selling silver at $17 an ounce, we obviously have to do it. But we sell our metal goes to U.S. Traders, U.S. buyers, and we our metal is dealt with on the COMEX and not on other foreign exchanges.
Got it. Well, that's an excellent segue to another question that one of the readers submitted, Keith, and I think I'll just dive right into that one. As price rises, many mines from secondary producers come back online and the supply increases. So how do you, as the CEO of your company, manage this dynamic and getting the best price for your shareholders?
Well, yeah, it goes back to, I guess the previous question. If you go back, the company is entering its 15th year of business and just has entered in 2017 its 15th year in business. So we've been around a while. And, if you go back, since we've been producing, I think we beat the average COMEX price virtually every single quarter, except, there's a few quarters that we were a few pennies below the COMEX average. But generally speaking, we beat the COMEX average. And I do that by taking advantage of the market. My background is trading back in the 80s. So I think I've been pretty good at doing that. But, the supply demand fundamentals of the metal are extremely favorable. I'm looking at, I'm thinking that silver prices are going to go much, much higher. So, over the next few years, as the prices go up, as I'm expecting they will, more supply may come online. I don't know, but there's really no big silver mines out there that are going to actually disrupt the supply that I'm aware of. A lot of the metal, a lot of the silver comes from base metals, comes from zinc mines, lead mines, and so on. And there is a lead mine, a zinc lead mine coming on stream at the end of 2018, but it doesn't have any silver in it, so it's not going to affect the silver market at all. So, I don't know. I don't see much silver. I just see the demand for silver, continually forcing a deficit. We've had multi-year deficits in the metal, and I don't see that changing at all.
All right, fair enough. You mentioned being subject to the whims of the paper market and the LBMA and the COMEX, and the next couple of questions deal with that pricing structure. As you know, there's currently one, at least, silver class action lawsuit that is making its way through the courts in the U.S. and moving into legal discovery. So this next question is just wondering, since you've been such a vocal proponent and putting forth the idea that these markets are heavily managed and manipulated, will you and or First Majestic be joining any of these current class action lawsuits that allege silver price manipulation?
Yeah, look, I've been on the air talking about this, and I think that unfortunately, I think some people put me in the kind of the quack category because of my vocal stance on what I believe is happening in the metals market. And, it's not a matter of just me. I think the evidence is extremely clear. You look at the Deutsche Bank emails or text messages that were going on between the different banks about, smashing down gold and silver and so on. I don't know why there's an argument on the other side that this stuff actually doesn't occur. But, there are still people on the other side that claim that banks are not manipulating metals, which obviously I'm on the other side of that argument. So, I've spoken to the lawyers involved in the class action lawsuit. Just to be clear for your listeners, it's not a class action lawsuit yet. The lawyers are working to get it elevated to a class action lawsuit, and it could take another year to accomplish that. And with the Deutsche Bank news coming out, I think that it's going to be very, very likely that the lawyers are going to be successful in actually getting it moved up to that classification in the U.S. legal system. And once that happens, then First Majestic has put its name on the table and said, look, we will be part of that once you get it elevated. So we're on record saying that. I'm looking forward to being part of that. It's just a bit of a waiting game.
Yep. Okay. Well, and to that end, the next question is, within this current paper market structure, is there anything that can be done to increase the transparency of how silver is priced?
Well, it's I tweeted an article just about a week ago. And by the way, people, if they want to follow me on Twitter, they can do that. Just Keith_Neumeyer. But it was an interesting article that came out on Seeking Alpha, and it was WikiLeaks release. And they released an article or a string of communication between the United States government and the UK government, which took place, I think it was 1978 or 74. Mm-hmm. Okay. And, about creating the COMEX, creating the, paper gold, basically, creating the futures market. And it was quite interesting. It was very clear that they did it for the sole reason to try to dissuade U.S. citizens from buying gold. And I shouldn't have been surprised when I read it, but when I was reading it, I was going, "Oh my God! This is like we had the Deutsche Bank news just a month ago, and now we've got this coming out. Like what's going on here?" And obviously, when you're looking at the silver industry, and I guess we're talking more about silver than gold right now, but we trade about 1 year's supply of silver in a single day in the paper market around the world. And then that's ridiculous. And then, how does that actually occur? How does a bank just go and, short sell or millions of ounces of silver in a single day when they don't even have a delivery? They just do it. And then they do it in collusion with others. And, it's quite shocking. So I think that, we have to dismantle the entire process. And I think that's in this interview, it's me, talking about it. It's other executives of the mining industry hopefully coming forward. It's only going to be accomplished from media like this and us speaking out, and because the rules and regulations are on the books. It's there. We don't need any more rules and regulations. What we need is the regulators to follow the rules and regulations and force the banks to follow the rules and regulations.
That's a tough one, no doubt about that. And I know you've been banging your head against that wall for years as well. And that actually is a segue into the final question that we have for you, Keith. And it is, will there ever be a day when these paper markets fail to deliver? Because that might be kind of a force breakage of what you've been talking about. If so, if there is that day ever coming, will you be able to see it coming? What signs do you think would be present that some type of delivery failure is imminent?
Well, I feel like a bit of a broken record, but look, it's already happened. It's happened several times. It's just you don't really see it happening. There's no rules in place that force the exchanges to deliver the metal to you. It's a paper instrument. It's cleared or it's in U.S. dollars, and then if you have a profit or loss in that, you get paid out in that currency, and that's simple as that. So, if you call for the metal, you may get it, but it's very difficult. You have to pay a fee for it. They make it tough for you to call metal off the COMEX. You can do it, but if there's a run on the COMEX, if there's multiple people asking simultaneously for the metal, they can just simply just deliver you cash. They don't have to deliver the metal to you. So it's right in their rules, and it's in their guidelines. And so I don't know. I think the solution is really mediums like this, where we have to point the people at situations like this, because we know. I think people that have been watching this market for the last decade or so, we know that there's manipulation in currencies. We know there's been manipulation in the bond market, oil and gas and the metals and so on and so forth. And we just have to point the governments, point the regulators. And look, we're going through a sea change around the world. With Trump coming in, I'm hoping he doesn't fall into the same malaise that other politicians fall into once they take their title as president, because it seems a lot of the individuals they talk a big story, and right when they take their seat, they all of a sudden everything changes and they go back to what everyone else has been doing. So I'm optimistic that Trump's not going to fall into that, and we've seen some interesting things happen in Europe, the elections over there. So maybe there's a change of foot where the new electorate, the new politicians that are being elected around the world are going to look at their systems and say, hey, look, you central banks, you shouldn't be manipulating markets, the way you are. Why are governments, in the markets? Why are governments buying stocks? Why are governments buying and selling, commodities? It just doesn't make sense. I think if you ask the average person on the street, should governments be in the markets? I think virtually everyone past would say, no, absolutely not. They should be focusing on supplying services to the people, not manipulating markets, yet they do it on a regular basis, and they have to be told not to.
And even in the face of that, Keith, it looks like we have a good year ahead of us. Just personally, you feel pretty good about silver prices in 2017?
Yeah, I'd love to see a bit of a repeat from 2016 without the summer correction. But, we had a great first 6 months of 2016. We're starting off to a bit of a nice start in 2017. Look, I'm a huge bull on gold and silver, so they should be much, much higher than where they are today. Silver is being gobbled up around the planet, in every kind of industrial use you can imagine. We're mining 9-to-1 gold silver right now. So for every 1 ounce of gold, we're mining 9 ounces of silver. So in my mind, silver should be, trading at, about that ratio, which would put it, much, much higher than where it is today. And so investors should be looking at this industry because it's beaten up, it's down substantially. And, talking about First Majestic, our cash flows, even though silver's not that exciting at $17, are pretty darn good. Our treasury is going up every quarter. We ended 2016 with a record treasury of over $120 million in the bank. So we're excited, and we're starting to reinvest capital this year. We've got quite a large capital investment in Mexico in development and exploration, and we're looking for increased production over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Sounds good, my friend. It sounds like we're going to have a fun year ahead. Again, this has been our interview with Keith Neumeyer, who is the president and CEO of First Majestic Silver and the chairman of First Mining Finance. Keith, it's been great fun visiting with you. Thank you for spending some time here with us at Sprott Money News.
Yeah, it's great that your listeners were able to send some questions in. They weren't the easiest questions, obviously, but look, we're all in this together, and I think we just have to be very vocal with what was going. I think we have to be very vocal with what's going on in the marketplace.
Well, please keep up the good work, and thank you for your time this morning. And from all of us here at Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again next month.